Okay, so Mother's Basement recently put out their ones to watch video for the spring anime of this year, right? Which is like their roundup of all the seasonal anime, where they give their recommendations on like which ones are the ones to watch, which ones are like the really interesting ones, and at the end of the video they give their sort of also ran recommendation. Like these are the ones that are like must watch, like instant classics of the new season or whatever. But the ones like if you are into this genre, these ones seem good, you should give them a watch. And I'm sort of half listening to the video at that point, because I've got something going on the other monitor. I think I'm processing an invoice or something, and then like I sort of out of the corner of my ear I hear yaoi anime omegaverse, and I kind of go, hang on, what? And I go back and like rewind, like I listen to, and what it concerns itself with is this anime, which is called Tadaima Okaeri, which is about two men who have a child together, but they have not adopted this child. One of the men gave birth to the child, and as far as I can tell, it's not that like one of the men is a trans man, but rather that part of the premise of the show is that cisgender men can get pregnant and give birth. And I sort of went, oh, that's interesting. I realized I've never seen an anime that does that. I've never seen an anime with that premise. Right, like I've seen plenty. I've seen like gay slice of life stories about like two fathers adopting a child. Those like there's kind of a decent number of those, especially a decent number of manga that deal with that. But I've never seen one that sort of just has the premise of male pregnancy just like there. And so I got curious, and I was like, well, fuck it, I have an anime reaction channel. Sure, why not? Let's watch it. Let's see how deeply this thing engages with it, because my feeling is that despite that being sort of a hooky, interesting premise of like, oh, like a pregnant man thing, that's interesting for a premise. That sounds kind of unusual. My feeling is that the show itself is not going to make a big deal out of it at all. That's my vibe looking at the concept, like, well, not the concept of the promotional art. And then like the images I found on Google and shit, is that the show itself is not going to make a huge deal out of that. It's just that it wanted to tell a story about two married men where like one of them gave birth to a child and they are raising the child together. And it just like invented a premise that allows for that to happen. But it's not going to be like this is the mind-blowing twist of the genre thing that they're doing. It's just going to be a thing that's there. In perhaps a way that's quite boring. Which like a lot of these slice of life anime are by design quite boring, in the sense that essentially nothing ever fucking happens in them, because they're comfort food. Like they're just a way to hang out in a space that's just nice and conflict free and sort of pleasant and low stakes. And you know what? Sure, I've got 20 minutes just to check it out, just to give it a look. So if you want to do that alongside me, there's a timer in the top left corner of the screen, and you'll be able to see some of the subtitles in that faded out box up at the very top up there. Use that to stay in sync with me as you watch the show on your own monitor. And I will give you countdowns whenever it's time to play or pause the video, because I'll say 3, 2, 1, go, and then we'll go from the start. But then occasionally maybe I'll have something to say, and I'll say 3, 2, 1, pause, and I'll say my piece, and then I'll say 3, 2, 1, unpause, and you stay in sync with me, and we watch the show together, and we just have an interesting time watching an anime that sounds potentially interesting alongside one another. I think I have explained the concept clearly. So, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so it's not a high-budget show, clearly. A lot of focus on that wedding ring, though. I like the watercolor style of the backgrounds. Like, it seems mostly to be filters, but it works. What's the circle on the back of his neck? Oh, hey, they actually do have an on-screen kiss. Well, sort of. The camera cuts away a little bit there. What's with the circle on the back of the neck, and what's with the pills? That's interesting. Oh, the news story is gonna be... Oh no. Oh, no, it is... Wait, it is explicitly? Oh, it is... Oh! 3, 2, 1, pause. Oh! I misunderstood. I misunderstood in time. I thought... I was listening to Mother's Basement sort of explain and say, oh, it's an omegaverse anime, and I thought, oh, because there's a man who can get pregnant, that's why you're calling it omegaverse. And like, no, oh. No, so this is like... We're actually doing like an ABO, a sort of... Like, where they have this social structure of like, oh, okay. Oh. Well, this just got a whole lot more interesting all of a sudden. Again, I have never seen an omegaverse anime. Do others exist? Tell me in the comments. Like, are there more of them out there? Have I just been ignorant of the presence of like a whole subgenre this whole time? Because... Oh, okay. Like, shit, let's see where this goes. But yeah, like, the budget is clearly not very high. And also, it doesn't need a high budget, right? Like, it doesn't really need a huge amount of budget, a huge amount of animation to convey the very quiet, low-stakes, sort of domestic bliss thing that it's got going on. There are a few things, like, the body language between the two husbands is like... That was some very we are occupying default pose in front of each other, rather than any sort of sense of physical intimacy or familiarity between them, which that can also come down to cultural differences, I suppose. But like, it's not a high budget anime, but the concept all of a sudden is very interesting to me. I'm curious. I want to know. Okay, so actually ABO, huh? Well, let's see where that goes. 3, 2, 1, unpause. Is that not normal? Oh, so it's ah. Oh. Wait, okay, so 3, 2, 1, pause. Let me just... Oh, okay. Because my understanding was, like, in Omegaverse fiction in general, the idea is that alphas will pair off with them. Like, alphas will conquer omegas with heat cycles and lust and pheromones and so on. But the way that this show seems to be playing it, and I guess that's a difference that exists within the genre, is essentially sort of, okay, like, we have gotten rid of homophobia as like a thing, right? Like, no one's like giving these two people shit because of homophobia, but because, well, there are certain types of people who simply should not date one another, which sort of broadens the applicability of the metaphor to, like, well, I guess, like, it sort of risks running into things of like, is this thing trying to comment on race, for example, or is it trying to comment on class? But it sort of creates a Romeo and Juliet dynamic, like this forbidden romance thing, which, okay, like that's a potent site of like social conflict and anxiety in a character. So that's like it's a strong place to work from. I just didn't know that was a thing in Omegaverse. Admittedly, I don't know that much about Omegaverse. Like I know the meme shit about it. Like, oh, it's like wolves and knots and just lots of spraying everywhere. I know the memes about it, but I also know that it is a literary genre that's like has its own like self-contained set of developments, and subgenres and revisions and variations, that sort of range really widely in what they explore. I'm having a good time now. This is interesting. Okay. Shit. Show me some more. Let me see where this goes. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, that's sweet. The child is the thing that banishes the dark thoughts, right? Like the TV represents like the spiraling insecurity thoughts, and then the child is the thing that interrupts that. That's sweet. Like that's a good way to do that. For the most part, looking at the aesthetic, it looks like it's just going to be like 100 million% fluff 100 million% of the time, which for the record, good. That's what this kind of show is supposed to be. What I'm going to be interested in is like, okay, so how do the alpha omega, are there going to be betas as well? Oh wait, is it the thing of alphas pair up with betas but not omegas? Is it, I don't know. I'm curious to see like where are they going to take that? Like to what extent is that set of narrative tropes going to influence the world building here, I guess? There have also been a few, I think, well-observed moments of the kid's animation, like the child, where he seemed like there seems to be a degree of observation of like the awkwardness with which a child moves that I think is like reasonably accurate. And again, that focus on the ring finger of the wedding band. Ooh, scary. Of course, no specification of what he actually works as, like what he does for a job. Actually, 3, 2, 1, pause. That is a thing, and this is not a thing that's specific to this anime at all, but that is a thing that I've noticed in like slice of life anime, especially that's set in the real world, is characters will have jobs. Like they will have office jobs and they go to those office jobs and they sit at computers and they type things, and people walk around with papers and they have work dumped on their desk by their unreasonable boss or whatever. But a lot of the time, like, just like, oh, what kind of work do they do? Work. They have office. They do in the office and then they work in the office where they do office work, and it's like there's an interesting non-specificity to the kind of work, to the kind of labor that is done a lot of the time in these stories, where it's not really important what the work is, just that the character is working, right? Which I think is interesting because, like, I would find it like it's like a revelatory detail about a character's personality, right? Like, what kind of work do they choose to enter? Which, like, again, is maybe a cultural thing, because I live in a culture wherein, like, oh, you should go to school and you should study your passion and you should enter a field that you're really sort of interested and passionate about. Like, maybe things just aren't really that way so much in Japan. Like, I don't know enough about the Japanese education system or like the way that work and jobs are handled there to know that. But yeah, it just struck me that in a lot of the anime I watch, where like it's an adult character and they have jobs, like Wotakoi, or Wotakoi, like the one with the two otaku who end up dating each other. It's like, I don't think they ever specify in the anime what the fuck their job is. Same thing with the Gretsuko, right? Like, I don't think they ever specify what the job is beyond like some vague accounting, something to do with numbers, spreadsheets, like business numbers. And it just kind of struck me like how interesting that is, that there seems to be like this genre convention that, oh yeah, they work. What do they work as? Well, job. They work at job. They they go to work at the business factory, right? Like, that's sort of okay. Like, that's, anyway, that doesn't really have anything to do with this specific anime. It just struck me, and then I had to say it out loud because of the way that I am as a person. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, breaking the 180 rule. Honestly, it's got to be a little traumatizing for a kid to be handled like that. Because he's being overwhelmed by attention from complete fucking strangers, my dude. Okay, so what's with the bottle? Oksan. Oh, the light goes out of his eyes. So that's pretty severe. Also, your kid. Like, your kid just saw an adult hit another adult. Yeah, sure, you're not like that, dipshit. Just know when to stop talking, man. Wait, 10 months? What? Oh, he meant the kiss. I thought for a second. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Hey, intimacy. Nice. Good. Right, so classic yaoi dynamic there, absolutely. Oh, they're also doing the pheromones thing. Okay. This is where being aromantic makes these like makes me have inappropriate reactions because I see that and I just kind of go like that's a little funny. Um, but of course it's not aimed at me, right? This is not for me, and it's not speaking to my concerns or interests. This is unbearably fluffy. Holy shit! Like it is so syrupy, sugary sweet. I don't mind that at all. Okay. So the format seems to be playing with like sort of half unbearably sugary, syrupy, sweet domestic bliss, and then half like engaging with the like the premise of that there's discrimination and like social ostracization. That man is a theater kid. and down it goes. Okay. I thought for sure he was going to knock it off. Oh, well. Nice use of filters there. I really do think the watercolor filters that they're using here are quite good looking. Right, I can see the flaws here and there around the edges, but like, they do make backgrounds look really nice and soft, and sort of soft focus without. Untranslated text. Okay, I can't really get anything from that. Oh, crisis. There it is. I knew that was going to happen. And that is a crisis. That's well observed that a kid would like find that upsetting and scary. Yeah, there's some truth to that. Like, kids can internalize these things and they can become like really. I don't know that they do that at 2 years old, but you know. No, he just heard exactly what you told him. Exactly what you told him. That's the thing that's true about kids. Like, kids will hear exactly what you say and they will internalize it. So you have to be real fucking careful about how you phrase things sometimes. it is eliding the more difficult parts of raising a child, which is like, sometimes they poop on stuff, oftentimes themselves, the sleepless nights, etc. Hey, secondary characters. Ooh, cold-hearted, huh? My. I wonder if he's gonna run into someone who melts that cold exterior of his. Okay. So, like, fully transparently, my primary interest here is, like, how is it gonna play the omegaverse part? That's what I'm interested in from this anime. The sort of child-parent thing hanging out stuff is a little too syrupy sweet for me. Like a little too wish fulfilly. But like the undercurrent of the premise of like omegaverse tropes undergirding this world, that to me is fascinating. Because like it's like any set of tropes, it's something that can have like a range of consequences, right? Like it's something that can influence every single aspect of everything that happens, or it can be just flavor. Here it seems to be sort of taking a fairly, like, it keeps it mostly flavor, but the conflict that's being set up, right? Like the long-term peril that's being set up is this thing about like impermeable classes, that alphas and omegas are class apart, never the twain shall meet, and like that there's a social stigma against this thing, and there's going to be some logistical problems that sort of arise around that, which will be the challenges to the primary relationship, right, between these two men, will be like the sort of the social stigma of the alpha omega thing, and whatever the physical consequences are of being an omega, which is sort of hinted at in that he needs pills because of pheromones, I think, which, if I remember my omegaverse, it's that betas or omegas, there's something about they give off pheromones that can cause alphas to like act unwise, I guess, as it were, and so they kind of have to take pills to keep that under control, and then otherwise, you know, like transgressive bad things can happen. So there's this peril of like there's this constant peril of like something can happen that makes a transgression of boundaries more likely, or that increases the risk of something bad happening, kind of thing. And that sort of creates an underlying tension that the show can then play with. I must admit, I'm curious. I don't know if I'm going to react to more episodes of this. That sort of depends on the response from you guys out there, but I'm curious enough that I'll watch the second episode. Like, I'll see where this is going. Even if the sort of child-parent bonding scenes aren't really my thing, this is interesting. Because, like, and this is a whole different discussion. Like, the omegaverse, like, it has this social stigma about, like, oh, it's 100% porn all the time. It's all porn. That's not true. And it has, of course, the social stigma of being something that women like, which means that it's stupid and shallow, and only dumb people enjoy it, right? Like, that's the classical thing, right? Like, whenever girls are into something, suddenly it's lame, because we hate women, and we hate especially stuff that teenage girls are into. Oh, God forbid that teenage girls are into something. That makes it the stupidest, dumbest, lamest shit in the universe. Whereas stuff that teenage boys are into, well, that's kind of cool, though. Like, right? Like, My Little Pony, Twilight, vapid. Like, just anti-art that just like makes the whole world dumber by existing. But the Fast and the Furious franchise, well, that's about family, man. Like, that's a really good, it's actually a really good action franchise, and that's like actually some really good themes, and it's actually a lot cooler and much more, like, that thing happens, right? But I've always thought, like, the tropes of the omegaverse thing that I know, like this thing about like there being special, like, specific categories of people that are associated with certain traits, is like, you could make a shonen anime out of that. Like fucking, like, the classic thing of like you have a shonen battle world where the alphas have all the superpowers and the omegas don't have the superpowers, and then your protagonist is an omega who somehow gains the power to fight like as though he's an alpha, and then you have like the dual thing of like he's pretending to be an alpha while he's fighting in the fucking tournament arc or whatever, and it's like, oh, they can never find out his secret because then, and use that as the lens in which to create a sort of like friendship overcomes all, and like people overcoming social barriers kind of thing. Like, it's a series of tropes that, beyond like their application for like romance and for porn, like would easily lend themselves to other forms of storytelling, which is kind of what caught my attention here. Is like, oh shit, like, it's here we have like this sweet, absolutely steakless, syrupy, fluffy, pleasant little slice of life anime about a nuclear family being extremely wholesome and adorable, but also omegaverse dynamics, sort of as an undercurrent to create like emotional drama and tension in the background of like the ostensible main narrative. Like, that's interesting. In fact, maybe rather than watching the anime, maybe I'll look up the manga. Like, it depends. Like, if there's a response to this and people want to see me react to further things about this and sort of look at them, I'd be happy to do so. But if not, I think I'll find out whatever the fuck this thing is based on, and I'll go look that up, and sort of read it and see where they go with it. Because I'm curious. Like, I'm interested, not in the sense of like, I don't necessarily think that this is particularly exceptional. I think it's cute. I think it's fluffy. I think if you're into this kind of vibe, you're going to have a nice time with it. It's just going to be like a cozy blanket you can put on and just have a good time with. So, like, I'm not like, oh, this is secretly the best romance. Like, none of that. But it's interesting. It's trying something I've never seen before, which might just be my own ignorance, right? Like, that maybe there are other anime that sort of take on this omegaverse premise in its background that I've just not been aware of. But I've never seen it before. So I'm curious. Anyway, this was cool. Bye.